A lot of wheel spin. Hello everyone, welcome to the Buick Envista. This is all new for 2024 and it's a pretty unique little vehicle. It's based on GM's kind of entry-level vehicle platform, VSSF, and it's shared directly with the Trax. Essentially, it's the little bit more premium version of the Chevrolet Trax, a little bit sleeker looking, especially outside, and a much more diverse looking interior in terms of material choices and just shapes. The Trax isn't a bad vehicle whatsoever, but this is meant to be a little bit more premium feeling. It's also debuting Buick's kind of new logo design in the United States. And let's go take a quick look on the exterior before we take this thing on a drive. So out here we have this really cool color called Cinnabar Red Metallic. I think it looks pretty sweet. Definitely a unique color. We can see we have it here in the Avenir trim, which is going to get you some nice touches and features, definitely for sure. Check out these wheels. It's a little bit wet and rainy today, so we're going to go hop inside and take this thing on a drive. Nice accents, and it is kind of a sportback style vehicle. These cool taillights as well. Well, that's all in my full review. We're gonna go take this thing on a drive now. Check out this little pattern here. Now, popping the Avenir into drive is pretty simple. All you have to do is make sure it's on and pop this awesomely shaped gear selector here into drive. We also have a low gear here, and you can also manually control the gears with this little side button here. We do have a rear reversing camera as well. Pretty clear, actually. Nice, big, wide view on the screen. I think you can option this thing with parking sensors, and it does have trajectory as well. Nice touch there for Buick. The interior is pretty interesting, as I mentioned. We'll get to that while we're driving, but let's head off. Now, it is raining today, and which is a great way to test out our automatic wipers, which this does have. We also have automatic headlights, LED headlights on this Buick Envista. And under the hood, we have that tiny 1.2 liter turbocharged 3-cylinder engine. And that's paired with this 6-speed automatic gearbox. So I'm kind of glad that GM didn't throw a continuously variable transmission or a CVT into the Envista or the Trax. That was a nice little change they did there. And it still returns pretty decent fuel economy. We're getting up to around 30-ish miles to the gallon. I know some people have gotten over that. Daily around use, you'll be seeing like 25 to 28 miles a gallon, which is pretty good. Now, a lot of people are comparing this with its sister vehicle, the Trax, and when they drive the two, yes, they look different, but there actually are changes underneath. Yes, they share the same wheelbase, engine, gearbox, and the platform, and a lot of the same parts. But what Buick has done is they have retuned the suspension. Let's just test out this little bit of a torquey engine here, 160-ish pound-feet of torque, around 132 horsepower. Spinning the front tires here, it's a little slick out. That was just a gentle acceleration there, nothing too aggressive. We'll take you guys on the highway in just a second. Now, the unique thing that Buick has done here is they've retuned the suspension bushings to make them softer than the Trax. This is obviously going to improve ride, but one thing you can get on the Buick Envista that you cannot absolutely get at all on the Trax is this Watts Link rear suspension. Now, this is optional on, I think, the ST version of the Envista, not the entry-level preferred, but this Avenir gets it standard. And all it is essentially is that the Trax and Envista use a torsion beam rear suspension, so essentially it's just one big beam connected to the two springs, and that's how it's typically found on economy vehicles. It's a cheaper style suspension setup. But what the problem is with those suspensions sometimes is that those side-to-side movements can be a little bit uncomfortable in some occasions and could be a little bit stiff. This Watts Link setup, essentially what it's doing is it's adding an additional link kind of in the center bit of that beam to kind of dampen out those side movements. And so the Envista does drive a little bit more softer, a little bit more luxury focused, and that's kind of mindset versus the Trax. Now, is it noticeable? Honestly, yes. That was one of the first things I did notice getting in the Envista and driving it. I took the Trax on a pretty long 200 plus mile road trip, and driving this, instantly I noticed that there was a difference in the suspension. So let's pop onto the highway here. Now, it's not the quickest thing on the planet. It's a small engine. It's meant to be putt-putting around with decent fuel economy, but you do have some good acceleration onto the highway. It doesn't feel dangerous, so I'll put it that way. So we're around 40 miles an hour now. Getting up to highway speed. Is not super difficult. Doesn't take too long. You know, if you're gonna do a pure all-out 0 to 60 test on this thing, it's gonna be in the 9-second range, but that's not why you're buying an Envista. You're looking for an affordable vehicle that has a lot of stuff that you're getting for that price. And also, you don't have or need all-wheel drive. This is a front-wheel drive only vehicle. So, how is the Envista on the highway? This is actually one of the other bits that did impress me really, really well over the Trax. I'm pretty sure Buick stuffed in some more noise-canceling material throughout the body panels of the Envista to kind of further enhance that sound isolation experience on the interior. And that is definitely something I noticed on the highway, because when I did take the Trax on the highway, it was quiet. It did impress me how quiet it was for the price point, and that's the type of class of vehicle, but this is even quieter. It also features this kind of active sound cancellation through the speaker, so it kind of plays like this low frequency sound to kind of help cancel out even more noises. So that is going on here as well. And I think it works. It is pretty quiet on the highway. I do quite appreciate that a lot, especially for an entry-level vehicle. You have to remember, this vehicle starts at $23,000. This one is the Avenir. It's essentially fully loaded. All we're missing is the moonroof package and I believe a parking sensor package. I think that's it. It has pretty much everything else, and it's around $30,000. If anything, you'll be paying up to $31,000 to $32,000 of these, but that's if you have all the bells and whistles. Otherwise, you can get these pretty decently priced in the $20,000 range, which is something you just can't find on modern vehicles these days. Now, one of the good packages that this thing does have for around $800, I think I actually see a truck of Traxes and Envistas right there, which is pretty funny, is that this has radar cruise control. So it has that little GM funky thing where we can kind of change that gap adjust thing. Now, in a vehicle that doesn't have radar cruise, it will actually kind of work to just like alert you from how far you are from a vehicle if you're getting too close. But since this does have the radar cruise control, that system also plays in with adjusting your gap between a vehicle in front of you. And this is pretty funny. We're gonna go test out this radar cruise behind a truck carrying Envistas and Traxes, which is hilarious. Turning on radar cruise is pretty simple. You just pop on your cruise control on the left-hand side of your steering wheel, set your speed, and that's about it. You don't have kind of lane or full steering assist. You do have lane keep assist, so it will bump you in and out of the lanes and give you an audible warning, which I do quite like. You can set your speed, and of course we can change that gap adjustment really easily here with this button. So what else is really going on in this interior? So one of the main interesting points here is that the interior is kind of designed for the Envista, not necessarily the Trax here. So we have a unique shaped dash. We have this kind of unique surround around the two screens, which are the same as the Trax, but everything in here feels a little bit more unique. We have a unique style steering wheel for the Envista, wrapped with this leatherette material. The driver's seat even has lumbar support, which is a nice touch as well. And just driving this Envista around 99% of the time, it's just very comfortable, actually. Braking performance is pretty good. I don't really have any complaints there. Steering is very light but direct. It doesn't feel cheap or artificial or anything. It just feels like a regular vehicle, and that's something that you sometimes don't find in these cheaper econobox style class of vehicles. I wouldn't even go anywhere near to call this thing an econobox something you would find back in the day. And this is definitely an elevated experience over some of the competition, including the Trax, such as like a Nissan Kicks or especially a Mitsubishi Outlander Sport, for example. This is definitely going to be a nicer experience in here. Yes, you can't get the all-wheel drive option, but generally 99% of the time you will be fine if you don't live in one of the snowbelt states or in a very snowy area. Now, as you can see here, we have this digital cluster, and it is mildly configurable. So all you have to do is really hold down this button on the right hand side, and you'll get a few different options of gauges you can go through. So there's gauge 2, for example, and you also have an information display as well. I'm not a particularly big fan of the displays up here. You can change this actually in the infotainment system for what you see in this information area. It's a little bit odd of the design layouts. You have a music one there, and you have a clean one, which is like way too bland. They're a little bit confusing to see. I mean, obviously you have your speed all the time, but just the layouts are a little bit interesting, I would say. And I think for my personal driving position right now, I can't see the whole display actually. I guess I could adjust the steering wheel, but then I won't be comfortable. But that's one thing to note. So there's some information on this top right hand side that I can't see, but thankfully it isn't anything super crucial. And even on these back roads here, I definitely noticed the difference in that suspension feel compared to the Trax. Even over bumps, things are pretty well damped. And this is all really great points you're going to be wanting in an entry-level vehicle. Sometimes people go into these vehicles thinking like, oh, it's going to be terrible. It's not going to be a premium experience. This may change your mindset a little bit. It drives really well for what it is. And if you kind of don't look at how much it costs and all that stuff, you might be a little bit surprised what you're getting here. A lot of wheel spin. And there is 60 for you guys. It takes some time, but it can definitely get up to it. Shockingly, the 0 to 50 mile per hour time is significantly quicker than our 0 to 60 time by around like almost 3 seconds, which is impressive. Anyways, guys, thank you for joining me on yet another video over at Allcarnews, and with this all-new Buick Envista. As always, stay tuned for more coming soon. Cheers.